Hello and welcome to another captaincy video from Fantasy Football Scout. We are on a roll with our captaincy shouts. Fernandez is indeed a points machine on the road. Southampton did indeed crumble against quality. Meanwhile, we were right to point out City's incredible record against Burnley. I think you read out the goals at home to Burnley last week, and it was quite something, David. Here's David. Here's me. Let's hope we can get it right again this week. Looking ahead to the game week 11 captaincy. David, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. As you say, quite buoyed by the fact that, like you say, we seem to be on a little bit of a roll. It's been a season where predicting things have been quite hard at the beginning, but I do think a lot of trends are starting to fall into place. And I think, so you've obviously mentioned there about Fernandes and De Bruyne. I'd just like to mention a little bit about Vardy because I know there's a lot. I mean, there'll be a lot of people who would be frustrated about not getting the haul. I was nervous not owning him. But we often get a lot of people sort of saying, "Oh, why are you analysing home versus away? That's all a load of rubbish now." And just because that seems to be the narrative everyone's bought into, but it clearly is not the case because we mentioned last week, didn't we, that Vardy in home matches had been just an absolute shadow of what he is capable of doing away from home, just simply because he's a player who thrives off being able to stretch his legs, get behind the defence and expose space.
Yeah.
And teams aren't going to give him that when they come visit the King Power Stadium. And Fulham did exactly that, on Monday night. It now means that Vardy in home games, I think, averages 3.3 points per home game versus 10.6 points per away game, which is a narrative that we pointed out last week. It's why I didn't go for Vardy in the end, and I'm quite happy that I didn't, because if I'd have brought Vardy in and captained him for a Fulham game, I would have understandably been expecting a big haul. But clearly, there's a trend there that he struggles at home. Completely different story this week. He's away from home against Sheffield United, so I'm sure we're going to be talking about that in more detail. But it just kind of goes to show that on these videos, the trends are there now. I think there is slightly less variance than there was. They're not always as easy to identify because maybe some of the factors are different. But it's quite helpful because it means preparing these videos is easier for me and you, and hopefully the viewers are getting something out of them as well.
Also, it's good to get a reason behind it because you can say, Vardy's better away than he is at home. Burnley always get hammered by Man City when they go to the Etihad, and we can say these things, and some people might watch it and go, well, is that just sort of just one of those things? But it's good if we can give a reasoning behind it. So you've given that good reason there behind Vardy. Obviously, he just doesn't thrive in those sort of setups when a team comes and defends at Leicester. But when he's on the road, off he goes. And Burnley, I'm still not quite sure why it is Burnley are quite so bad against Man City. Because it's not as if Man City are absolutely tearing it up against everyone this season, and it's not like Burnley are turning over against anyone. So maybe that is just one of those magical things. But let's go back to KDB because he's at home again, and he's my bus captain at the moment. I had him last week, Captain Fernandes. So much of a muchness there, but playing Fulham at home this time. So another great fixture on paper. What do you think about De Bruyne and City assets in general this week for the captaincy?
Yeah, so I mean, on paper, it's an obvious one, isn't it? That we always talk about our bus captains, that we, the gut calls we make when the game resets, and we have a look at, okay, who am I going for captaincy this weekend if I get hit by a bus? And De Bruyne it was just like, well, duh, like, why would I not? And then so I did that before he obviously went nuts against Burnley, and I'm quite happy going with the same thing again. I mean, I guess one thing that's sort of now at the back of my mind, because obviously on Monday night we were all expecting Fulham to get absolutely walloped by Leicester, and actually they were very good, and they have actually played quite well in their last few games. I think they've been unlucky not to get more points. They thoroughly deserve to beat Leicester. I thought Leicester were really quite average. And there was some good defending, which is a bit annoying because, like Fulham have kind of been this team we can just rely on. And now it's not quite the same story. We always like to look at, the last 4 game weeks for sort of defensive stats. And it's annoying because Fulham aren't in the bottom sort of like 6 or 7 anymore, which is where we'd been used to seeing them both the last time they were in the Premier League and kind of earlier this season. So, last 4 matches, if we look at big chances conceded, it's just 5, which is hardly any at all. In fact, only Newcastle, Man City, Spurs, Manchester United and Chelsea, so mostly the bigger teams there, have conceded fewer big chances. I mean, like Fulham have conceded fewer big chances than Liverpool. So it shows you that there is some improvement there, which obviously, like I said, is incredibly annoying. Some people might be like, "Oh, well, the teams they've played. Well, the teams they've played are Leicester, Everton, West Ham, and West Brom. Three of those teams are in enough form for us to basically be owning most of their attacking players, right? So, like, there is definite improvement at Fulham. Now, the problem is this week is your captaincy is always going to be comparing, that particular kind of matchup against what's on offer elsewhere, and kind of annoyingly, there isn't that many other teams that I would class as a whipping boy who are playing someone who I would be confident captaining. So, for example, if we look at, like I said, the people who are doing quite poorly defensively at the moment, Everton, bottom of the league for 16 big chances, Leicester with 15. Am I going to captain a Burnley player against Everton? No. Leicester's defence, again, quite poor. Am I going to captain a Sheffield United player? No, absolutely not. I'd probably rather chop my arm off than captain a Sheffield United player at the moment. West Brom are playing Crystal Palace. Southampton have conceded 12 big chances in the last four. Southampton are playing Brighton. So a lot of the teams that have defended really badly right now aren't playing someone you can trust. Now, who can you trust in fantasy over the last 18 months? Kevin De Bruyne. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to stand here and say Fulham are going to go to the Etihad and keep a clean sheet. There's definite improvement there. So maybe they might not get turned over as badly as they did before, but they've shown that they can form a deep block and win a game by doing it. Obviously by causing problems on the counter attack. That's obviously a huge part of why they won as well. But I didn't think they were capable of that before. They are now. Can they keep a clean sheet? Well, they didn't against Leicester, so I don't think they will against Man City. So then it just simply boils down to who do I think is the most likely to haul from Man City, and that's just an easy, obvious question. Is Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, so I've got some stats up on the screen here, so I'll come back to them in a second. I'll just put those KDB stats up again, looking at Man City. If you are minded to captain a Man City player, it's going to be De Bruyne, basically. So over the last 4 game weeks, he's had 16 goal attempts. This is far and away the most attacking player in City. He's also created 11 chances, also top. His expected goal involvement is 2.47. That's also top for amongst City assets, and his expected goals 1.44. That's also top. He's just top of everything. So he's the one to get. Torres is second on goal attempts for 11. Expecting goal involvement 1.55, so a bit below De Bruyne there. And then Mahrez trucking along with creating 10 chances and 8 goal attempts. So these are good assets to have, but it's clear that De Bruyne is the one if you are looking for the captaincy. I put some other stats up on the screen, and David, you kindly revealed them, which is great. So while you were talking, I could put those up. So no, this is great because so whilst people were listening to you, the stats magically appeared on the screen, and so they could see there the whipping boys, and it's not Fulham anymore. No, it was, but it's not. They're right down there. 5 chances conceded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 worse defences than Fulham currently over the last 4. And that shows that they are no longer whipping boys. It's Everton, it's Leicester, it's West Brom still. These are in terms of expected goals conceded, which tallies up, as you can see with the figures there on the screen, with big chances conceded as well. Everton conceded 16. They're meant to have expected goals conceded is nearly 10. So not doing very well there. There's the other stats I've got up on the screen is one we're going to come back to a bit later. Because there's a chat from Leicester at the top in terms of expected goal involvement over the last 4. But if you were minded to captain a City player against Fulham, De Bruyne is there. There is no other City players in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In the top 10 expected goal involvement, last 4 game weeks, all players, De Bruyne is the only City asset there in that top 10. And if we think that City are getting better, as they did indeed proved against Burnley, if we think they're going to maintain that, De Bruyne is a very good captaincy shout. I'm going to move on to Fernandes. Yeah, he was my man last week. And do you know why am I even captaining again? I know it's against West Ham. He's away to West Ham, but he is so reliable on the road. He's on the road again. Another point's all on the card. What do you think? Fernandes, good captaincy shout?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's 3 things that are certain in life: death, taxes, and Fernandes getting a double-digit haul on the road. It's ridiculous at this point. So I think, yeah, strong candidate. I mean, I think De Bruyne is going to be massively ahead in the poll this week. Just to refresh it now, just to double check. He was like streaks ahead on Monday night. Recording this on Tuesday morning. Yeah, 50% of the votes so far have gone for De Bruyne. Which means that there is a massive opportunity here for Fernandes captainers because it looks like not that many people are going to be considering him. But as you said, he's incredibly reliable. If you have seen enough of Fulham to think they can frustrate Man City, based on the information that we've passed on, then there's worse ways of going, I think, than captaining him. I mean, West Ham sort of people kind of look at them a little bit and think, oh well, I've got Soufal in my team, and I've got Fabianski, I've got Masuaku, because I think their defense is quite good. But actually, over the last 4, it's worse than Fulham's, which is quite interesting. So, as we've sort of been looking at, 9 big chances conceded over the last 4. And obviously, you could turn around and be like, well, 2 of those games were against big teams. Well, they're about to play Man United, so it's still relevant. Their XGC for that period is 6.83, which is the 5th worst in the league. And anyone who watched the Villa game on Monday night will know that Villa really should have won that. They were the better team. They created the bigger, better chances. Very unfortunate not to get something based on a penalty miss. And the less I say about the offside decision, the better, because I own Watkins and Target. But West Ham aren't gonna. I don't think they're gonna keep a clean sheet here in this game, because their defense. While I'm not going to get rid of my West Ham defender anytime soon, because they've still got some nice fixtures for this particular game, the way they've been playing doesn't indicate they can keep a clean sheet against Man United. And is there any point in us even looking at some underlying stats for Fernandes? I mean, I'm sure we can. I'm not going to have any issue with us doing that. But as you say, at this point, it's just, when will he stop? Like, he just cannot stop getting returns on the road. He really thrives in that scenario. So, yeah, really strong candidate this week. And like I said, I think the ownership thing the effective ownership thing here is a really, really big, exciting opportunity for anyone who wants to make surges up the league, because Fulham's defence is better than West Ham's over the last 4. And Fernandes is just completely reliable away from home. So great opportunity here for a big green arrow if you think you can maybe go against the crowd.
Yeah, the other good thing about Fernandes is that he's getting even better, because the way Manchester United are set up in their midfield now, especially with Cavani coming in up front if they can, because he is a lethal predator. But not just with him, the way they're set up in midfield, Fernandes seems to have been given this more attacking, freer role. He's much more in the box. He's much more attacking, and we can see with the the goal involvement as well that's so. In fact, he's even better captaincy shout than perhaps he was towards the end of the last season and earlier this season. So looking at his own stats, he's had 4 big chances and he scored 4 goals. There we go. He's had 17 goal attempts and 9 chances created. Now he's a midfielder, so that shows just how attacking he is and just how potent and just the breadth of points that you're getting there. So he's not missing. He's getting chances and not missing them. He's big chances. So that really helps his bonus. Not lots of shots off target there. He's got assist potential. And he's got goal scoring potential. He looks absolutely brilliant. And I put those other figures back up again about the while you're talking about the defence as well. We can see that West Ham's defence is worse than Fulham's by quite some distance actually. So on paper, KDB is not as good an option for the captaincy this week as Fernandes. So I'm a Fernandes KDB owner, and I am facing a choice. If I can ignore effective ownership, which is quite a hard thing to do for any FPL manager. But if you can try and avoid that, on paper, Fernandes against West Ham is a better captaincy shout than KDB against Fulham. Ooh, there, I've said it. But
I think I agree with you. But I think you're in a great position, though, Joe. I think because you own both, it gives you a more of a. It probably kind of frees you up a little bit more to maybe make that riskier call, right? Because you're protected, sort of. If you think both players are going to haul, it might be much of a muchness. I mean, they both got 10 points in the last game week. So, the fact you own both, does that make it easier to maybe not ignore the effective ownership, but not be led by it as much?
Well, exactly. And the other stats we've got up on the screen there is talking about big chances last 4 game weeks, which we had on just now when we were talking about KDB. Expected goal involvement, Fernandes is the 4th best in terms of expected goal involvement. And then De Bruyne is a bit further down. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th best So yeah, Bruno Fernandes was expected to be involved in 4 goals. He got 4 big chances to score 4 goals, and then De Bruyne has got 1 big chance, no goals, and he's expected to have been involved in 2.5, which in terms of his assist potential proves right. So proves that De Bruyne there is more of your assist guy, and Fernandes is more of your bit just get the points in away from home guy. Yeah, I've got a tough choice there, and other people may have similar ones. Let's move on to this guy, Vardy. Now, a lot of people are going to be let down, and this could be a recency bias thing here. So people will think, oh, look, Vardy at home to Fulham, easy captaincy. Lots of people did. Lots of people walked away with an assist and going. But by the beginning of the match, it was like, welcome to the Vardy party. And then towards the end of the match, it was like, an assist, I'll take that. I'll take that and run. Quick, close down all my social media.
Smash and grab.
Smash and grab, I'll have that. I think, as you pointed out, I think he's actually probably the best captaincy shout for this game week because he's away to Sheffield United, and as you said, away. So, but I mean, I'm gonna just put it out there. I think Vardy's the best captaincy shout this week, and I just don't think anyone's going to go for him because they'd be burnt last week. But what do you think, Vardy?
No, I think you're absolutely bang on. Recency bias plays a massive part in the way people play this game, which is why I think it's really important to sort of delve into more than just who scored last week. You know, you got to look into the different scenarios that kind of like suit different players. And there's an article that's on the website this morning which members can look at that kind of compares Vardy home and away underlying stats wise, because we already covered the points, but it's not just about the points, it's about the way he's playing as well. So in home matches this season, he's averaged 2 shots per game. In away matches this season, it's 2.6 per game. But there's a bigger sort of disparity when we look at things like big chances. At home, he has 0.8 big chances per game, which is crazy. You know, he's a great player and they're a decent team. You know, and he's averaging less than 1 big chance per home match this season. But away from home, he averages 2 big chances per away match, that's huge. That shows you, that's a data kind of driven way of pointing out that when he gets beyond a defender and he gets one-on-one with the goalkeeper, that's a big chance. And you will always see that more often away from home with Vardy. So, I think away from home he's going to do well. Then Sheffield United are just, they're still whipping boys, aren't they? I mean, they're in the bottom 4 for XGC over the last 4 matches. They should have conceded 7.3 goals. They conceded 7 goals. So they're not unfortunate. They're not lucky or whatever, any sort of like mitigating factor. They just aren't very good at defending opportunities and are conceding them as well. And they're the only team in the division without a clean sheet as well. So in terms of ticking loads of boxes about, this being a good matchup, Vardy, great away from home. Sheffield United, just rubbish wherever they play. Only team without a clean sheet. XGC is really bad. And then, as you said, I think if you've got Vardy, I think people will be selling him. I think people will be selling him this week because of that Fulham game. So, again, if we're talking about going against the crowd, if we think that maybe De Bruyne, say De Bruyne comes away with 2 assists like he did against Burnley, say he does that against Fulham, another 10-pointer. Vardy could be on for a hat-trick in this one, could be getting 15, 16 points. You captain him, then, you make up some ground on everybody else. So, it's easy for me to say I don't own Vardy, so I can't sort of like kind of just be like, oh, well, I'm doing it, so you should too. But if I owned him, it would be if I owned him, Vardy, if I owned Vardy, Fernandes and De Bruyne, I would be so spinning between who do I go with here. Because, I think between those 3, they all look very good. But as you say, I think Vardy just edges it because we've touched on the defences of those other teams, haven't we? And Fulham's is improving. West Ham's is getting worse, but it's not awful. But Sheffield United is awful.
Yeah. Well, let's get those figures back up because this shows that on paper Vardy is the best option out of all of those defences that we mentioned. Vardy's against the worst of those that we've mentioned so far. Sheffield United are the 4th worst in terms of XG conceded, and they've conceded 7. They should have conceded 7. The big chance conceded 10. So they're ticking along nicely as an awful defence. The way of looking at that is that arguably perhaps they've always been awful. But they had Dean Henderson to protect them. Now you spoke last week about that as well, about the about preventing goals being scored, and we look at the goalkeeper now, and bless Ramsdale, but he's no Henderson, and there you can see what happens when you get a not great goalkeeper with a not great defence, there we go. They start becoming whipping boys there. And also, on the picture I just put up of Vardy, I put a little snapshot of the expected goal involvement over the last 4 game weeks. Here's the full table there, and we can see Vardy's clear top. He's expected to be involved in 4.17 goals over the last 4. And that includes home and away. So if we think he's even better away, which the stats do indicate and the performances indicate, that's even more. His expected goal involvement, is going to be even more away. Sheffield United. He's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Have I got that right? And apparently he likes scoring against Sheffield United.
I think he scored in this fixture last year as well, because I remember it was game week 3, and I just sold him. he played the first 2 games of the season, and in game week 2, Lundstram, I'd started him and he'd scored, and Sheffield United's defence looked great. So I thought game week 3, right, I was going to start Lundstram again. And Vardy had 0 shots in the first 2 matches. I thought, right, he's gone. And what did he do? He does what he always does. It's away from home, bangs a goal in, goes up to the away fans, who I'm not entirely sure, but may well be there because I haven't looked at who's going to be where and who isn't. But he just loves it. He just loves just crashing a party and proving people wrong.
He'll go up and taunt empty seats. He doesn't care.
Oh yeah. Just go up to him and just point at himself. Yeah. This is a game tailor-made for him, definitely.
Definitely. Okay. Salah against, and I'm going to say Jota as well, and Firmino, and Mane, and Robertson even. Liverpool at home to Wolves. Now, we all know what Liverpool can do at home. We all know that Wolves have not looked as good as they did last season. Not quite right there. A team a bit in flux. This could be, you were talking about, a chance to look at effective ownership and go for a different captain. Salah or Jota could be the ones. What do you reckon? Liverpool for the captaincy?
I think I'm a bit less. I'm a little bit less convinced on them than I think some others are, because the injuries are an issue, and I think, I don't know. I mean, the narrative that Klopp is going with at the moment, I don't necessarily know how conducive that is to the team, because I don't know. It's sort of a bit, when you see your manager publicly complaining about things, and I'm going to say it here, I actually think he came out second best in that interview with Des Kelly. I know that's a bit of an unpopular opinion.
We are both
but
trained journalists, so we're completely biased.
Yeah, that's true. We're biased.
But at the same time, you don't shoot the messenger. Don't start blaming the messenger.
So I think a lot of that with Liverpool, I don't know how conducive that is for the players. I mean, if I was a player and I was having sort of some of these issues, and my manager was kind of having these little tizzies and interviews with people, specifically on this issue after a game where they should have won, but they just didn't manage the game properly, in my opinion. They were rubbish against Atalanta, so they are absolutely capable of producing some stinkers. And Salah has been somewhat, peripheral is the wrong word, because he keeps popping up, doesn't he? Because he obviously did put the ball in the net at Brighton, but it didn't count. But apart from sort of 1 or 2 key moments, at the moment, he doesn't look like a constant threat like throughout the whole game. He obviously has missed, a chunk of training. And I do think that shows, from what I've seen of Salah since he's come back, you can tell he's a guy that's had to take 10 days off training. So there's that. The thing with Wolves is that, maybe they're not as good as they were before. And like you said, they're definitely in flux in the sense that I think right now Nuno's caught between, does he play with a back 3 or a back 4, which is completely new for them because they've just always played with a back 3 or back 5, however you want to see it, back 3, back 5. When they played the back 4 without Cody in 2 games ago, it was the first time Wolves had played with a back 4 since Paul Lambert was in charge. So, it's a big change. And then he stuck with it for the Arsenal game, even when he had Cody back. So, yeah, I can see what you mean in terms of, do we know what to expect from Wolves? Probably not. But then whenever I come to a captaincy kind of potential matchup and go, I'm not really sure what to expect from both teams, just completely puts me off going for them at all. In fact, I still don't own Salah. My plan was to get him back in for the Fulham game. Having seen Fulham's defence get a little bit better, I'm now sort of a bit wavering on that. But I don't know. Wolves, I feel like they don't get turned over by anyone, and when it comes to the big games against the big clubs, they usually give them a good go. Now, obviously, they're going to be without Jimenez, so who knows? But again, it still just all comes down to uncertainty. I really just have no idea how this game's going to pan out. I couldn't tell you who's going to win. I couldn't tell you what type of game we can expect. I can't tell you which Liverpool's going to turn up, which Wolves is going to turn up. So then when we think about the kind of the probabilities that Vardy will score at Sheffield United, that De Bruyne will have, an absolute midfield maestro genius game against Fulham, or that Fernandes will do what he always does, which is double-digit haul away from home. Those all just are so much more convincing than anyone from this Liverpool game for me, in terms of the captaincy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you can never discount Salah for the armband. He's very reliable, ticks over with points. But compared to some of those other matchups, compared to some of the expected goal involvement stats that have been put up by the likes of Vardy, even De Bruyne is better. Salah is just not this week against Wolves. We're going to have a different conversation next week when he's at home to Fulham, and then we've got a little bit more chance to reassess Fulham's defence, see how they squared up against Man City, and whether Salah is the best captaincy shout there, because Salah against the minnow, that's usually a good sign. But yeah, I think for this one, I don't think Salah for me is going to get the armband. Just before we go, there are some other fixtures and other players to consider. Chelsea against Leeds looks interesting. Werner possibly. But there's a couple of issues that, I think maybe not now. Pulisic could be back, so Werner could get a rest. We don't know when. Likely he's going to get a rest at some point. All players do when you've got a big squad like that. And we have seen it before with Werner benched, with Pulisic in the first 11. Pulisic get injured in the warm-up, Werner comes on. So we've seen that Lampard has thought about that. He's shown his hand there. But nevertheless, Leeds. But the other thing is, you were talking about last week, Phillips back for Leeds. And what happened? They got a clean sheet. So, another feather in your cap there. Two reasons I'm not considering Chelsea, but possibly.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's annoying because I've got a Chelsea triple up, and part of the triple up was because I was eyeing up this fixture, but that was before Phillips came back, because I also did my wildcard a couple of weeks ago. And Phillips makes a big difference. I have had a little bit of stick on social media because I pointed out that they haven't conceded a goal since he came back, and they're like, well, they've been a bit unfortunate, and he hasn't defended very well. And I think you're talking a load of rubbish. Yeah. I'm talking facts for a start, because they have not conceded a goal since he came back. But it's not just about I think just in terms of understanding Leeds, because people are obviously going to be looking at their assets in a few weeks' time when their the fixtures get nice from a defensive potential, but also for these matchups as well when people play Leeds, because they were a whipping boy for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not just about what he does in terms of making tackles. They call him the Yorkshire Pirlo up there for good reason, because some of the passes he made against Everton were just beautiful. And that's a part of his game. It's a case of Leeds will defend by possession, by the fact that they won't lose it, because they've got him in the team to make those incredibly insightful passes. He will defend a situation in terms of territory, a little bit like a fly half in rugby, where they're under the cosh, they've got a couple of players swarming around the defence, and he'll just play a ridiculously defence splitting pass and turn defence into attack instantaneously, and that kind of residual effect has an effect on everyone around him at Leeds, and so then it means that in games that they've had him in the team this season, they've conceded 1.3 goals per game. For the 3 games they didn't have him, they conceded 2.7 goals per game in a 3-game period. So the difference with and without him is stark.
Yeah.
To the point that a Chelsea asset this week is just too much of an uncertainty for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've got Bamford. I actually think I might get more out of Bamford than I would of Chelsea asset this week. But then again, Chelsea got Mendy in goal now. Who I think when I was having a look at, I've just put the figures of the whipping boys up, but the best defence currently at the moment is Chelsea. And I think that's largely due to Mendy and having a decent goalkeeper that's spreading around the rest of the defence there. The only other fixture and note that I personally looked at was North London Derby, because it's a bit hard to predict. That's a tough one for the captaincy. But if I saw someone with Kane with the captaincy, I think he will be well captained.
Oh yeah.
If you look at the 7.5 million, 7.5 million people play it. Kane is a great striker. He's in the North London Derby. He's got a great record against Arsenal. If I was a more maverick manager, I have Kane in my side, I would swap Kane for Vardy, captain him, and there you go. But I'm not, because I think Kane's going to score. I think Kane's going to get points in this, and we've mentioned some of the other captaincy candidates as well, so I do have them. But other people who are a bit more maverick than me might want to go for that.
Even the casuals will maybe even go with Kane, because a lot of them still have him. But if we're talking casuals, I actually think Son is a good matchup for this, just purely based on a very specific problem with Arsenal's defence over the last four matches. So they've conceded 20 chances down their right flank in the last four, and only one team has given up more chances in that area of the pitch over the last four. That's Southampton with 22. So it means that if there's only one team worse than Arsenal than defending left-sided players in the last four now, who is one of the most exciting left-sided attacking wingers in the Premier League right now. It's Son Heung-min, who hasn't done too well in the last two matches, but they've been tougher games against arguably better teams than Arsenal. So if you've got Son, then I think he should be in your captaincy kind of consideration as well.
Yeah, no,
Based
good
on
point. And that makes me feel better as Kane, because who's going to be assisting Son for all his
very
goals?
true.
It's going to be Kane, hopefully. Yeah, I think the. I mean, just before we go, any of the other fixtures spring out? I mean, I think we pretty much covered most of the captaincy this week.
Yeah, no, I think between what we talk, I think at this point Spurs are the bottom of the barrel with the best of respect to them. So I think I will leave it with Son. I'll sign off on him.
Yeah, a good move. Just before we go, just mention the members area. Now, all those.
Cheers, Joe, and same to you as well.